We've changed ourselves to meet what they need for their criteria of us as people. So we've done three things. We've edited ourselves, we've muted ourselves, and we've exiled ourselves. This video is actually about addressing the parts of our lives that are weird, strange, peculiar, that people have looked down their noses at us and wanted us to change, giving us the look, or has that just been you again? When are you going to become what I want you to be rather than who you actually are? And so I want to tell you a story about my son. My son struggled right through school. And, we were always trying to get help for him. And one of the things that the teachers would say to me, especially when he was young, is that his comprehension of language isn't very good. And like he could read the words, but he doesn't comprehend it. So I'd sit down with him and ask him about the book that we just read. And he would comprehend it really well. And I'm like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with his comprehension. What are you talking about? But as we went through school, that continued to be a problem, and we continued to try and find solutions for it until he was about 14, I guess. And then we sent him to a tutor. And I imagined there was, because of changes that had been brought in his life, and we'd moved towns, and I thought there was chunks of education that were missing for him. And what I thought she would do, his tutor, who's an absolutely fabulous American woman, what I thought she would do is identify those chunks and teach them to them, and that would make the difference. But whatever she did, and I'll tell you what she did in a moment, it really changed his marks at school, and he got better and better and better. And he just graduated from university with honours. He didn't do an honours course. The reason he had honours for his architecture degree was because his marks were so good, so they gave him an honours pass. And I asked him about that recently. I said, well, what did that, I can't remember the lady's name. What did she do with you that was different, that made things different for you? And he said, well, she helped me understand what the examiners were looking for. And so that I would just write according to what they wanted. I was seeing what I was seeing, but I learned to write it in a way that the examiners, obviously that they gave him marks for, that he passed. And so the great thing about that is, what she didn't do was try and change him and make him into somebody else and said, you got to be someone else. She said, that's what they're looking for, and that's what you need to do to fit into their program. She wasn't saying you need to change, you need to become someone else. She was saying, this is what they need. And so often in our lives, instead of retaining who we are and communicating from that, recognizing people don't understand us, so giving them what they need to understand us, what instead that we've done is that we've changed ourselves to meet what they need for their criteria of us as people. So we've done three things. We've edited ourselves, we've muted ourselves, and we've exiled ourselves. And I want to just quickly go over those three things before I finish my walk this morning here on the island of Jersey. When it comes to editing, there are parts of ourselves that we find without recognizing it that people don't like. And so we can have two responses to that. One, and many of us, if you're listening to me and in my audience, will edit out those parts of the personality that are crashing with people. Others will amplify them. Yeah, so we'll edit out the parts of us that are causing others problems, or at least we'll try to edit them out. The other thing we can do is, it's editing. The other thing was mute things. We can turn the volume down on who we are. My daughter, when she was young, was always very noisy, and people wanted her to be quiet, and I never wanted her to be quiet. I didn't want her to mute that part of her personality, because that part of my personality I had to learn to mute, and I wanted to actually celebrate that part of her personality. The third thing we can do is exile parts of ourselves. When we exile parts of ourselves, we take the parts of ourselves that are essentially us and we shut them down, and we can even forget they're actually there. And in doing so, we're shutting down the image and likeness of God. We're muting the image and likeness of God, and we are exiling the image and likeness of God. And the work that God actually has begun in us as he's poured his love into us is to restore that likeness and image, is to help us rediscover that likeness and image and the awe and wonder of it so that we can return. That's the journey that we're on. If that sounds like a journey that you're interested in, why don't you like and follow me, and find out where you can sign up to my email. It'll be a link in the description or on my website somewhere. And I'll see you on the next one. Sending all my love to you from the island of Jersey.